Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. Today I'm recounting my top 10 games that I played in 2022 that were back to the table games for me. Games that weren't new to me, they weren't 2022 releases, they were not necessarily all real old games, but games that I had played before and was excited to get back to the table. I'm going to count down my 10 favorite back to the table games from 2022. Number 10 is the oldest on the list, and it is Concordia. And I almost always play with the salsa expansion. I love using the salt in there. And I played this both board game and also with the app and Steam. And just love, I know some people say, well, it's trading in the Mediterranean, it's boring. Well, to me, I love the strategy of trying to figure out how much to spread out, which cities to build in, which cards to invest, because at the end of the game, if you have Mars, if you have Jupiter, if you have all these Venus, all these different cards, that depends on how many points you win at the end. And I forget which ones are which. I always have to look while I'm playing, but you know, one of them is so many points for how many people you have out on the board and explorers you have out on the board. One is for, did you have all the different kinds of goods available? One is for, did you, you know, you get a certain amount of points for all the brick cities that you had, or all of the wool cities that you had. Another one is for, how many of the different territories did you build into? So depending on which ones you're going to try to focus on and which cards you can get, if you can get 3 cards that are all built on spreading out to a bunch of territories, then that helps shape your strategy. But you may want to do that strategy to the beginning game, and then you can't get those cards. So yeah, it's resource management, it's card play. I love the way the cards play in Concordia as well. You got a hand of cards, you play one and it's out of your hand, then you got the rest of the cards to go with, and you keep playing them until finally you can play the card, I think it's called Tribune, where you pull all the cards back into your hand. But when you do that, the more cards you've played, the more money you get when you pull it back. And you also have a chance when you play that to put a new explorer out, but you have to have, I think it's iron and wheat, if I'm not mistaken. So you have to be thinking about using your resources, but if you want to put another one out there, you got to save those so that when you play your Tribune card, you can do that. So many cool things, buying the cards from the Senate. And then with the Salt expansion, there's also these other tiles that give you special abilities, and then Salt's like a wild resource. I actually love Concordia. I know some people say it's kind of a boring game in their opinion. To me, I absolutely love it. So Concordia is one of my favorites and one of my top back to the table games for me in 2022. Next up, I got a new version of this one, and thanks to a friend of mine who told me about this deluxe version of Joraku by Moieties Games. And I forget who the original producer was. I think it was a different publisher originally, and it was in a small box, and there were some production issues that made the game a little less enjoyable to play. The gameplay is always cool. It's a trick-taking game, but you don't necessarily have to play suit, or you don't necessarily win by playing suit. You win by having the highest card, but there are certain cards that kind of trump, and not like the ninja wins if there was a 6 plate in the hand. But when you play the card, you are putting troops out onto the board, and the boards are going to be moving along this track towards Kyoto. And so you're putting your troops out, and you also got a samurai out there, and so, or a daimyo, I think it's called. And so that one, you're just area control, area majority. It's when do you put the troops out? They might get knocked off the board, and then when you play the card, you're deciding, okay, am I playing the card to move troops? Am I playing the card to put troops out? Am I playing the card to do another action? So you're trying to figure out, okay, and when do I want to win the hand? Sometimes you want to win the hand, sometimes you want to lose the hand, depending on which cards you have. So Joraku is just a lot of fun, such a unique little game, unique take on trick taking and area control. Just really a special game, number 9 in my list of games that I got back to the table. Next up, Lions of Lydia by Bellwether Games is a Johnny Pack game, and Daryl Jones did the art. And this one it's not a bag builder, but you have a bag and you've got these little tiles inside, but you always have 4. And you're deciding, okay, when I go to the market, I'm choosing what's going to be in my bag later. And so maybe, but I'm just going to reach in and pull one out of the 4. So if they're all 4 red, I know I'm getting a red. If it's 3 blue and a red, I know I'm going to probably get a blue, but it could be a red. And so you're just deciding on what you want to populate the bag with. You're also building a tableau of cards. It's a pretty simple game, but there's a bunch of modules that come with it as well, where you can kind of expand it out. And my wife and I got this one back to the table again. I really love it. It feels kind of like an engine builder. She likes it, but not as much as me, so we didn't play it a bunch, but I really enjoyed this. And we did play a few of the modules, and they're pretty easy to implement. So Lions of Lydia, another one back to the table for us here at the Webb household that I really enjoyed in 2022. Next up, another one. And by the way, the Concordia was 2013, the oldest one. Joraku's 2015. And Lions of Lydia was 2021. Next up, we've got the Red Cathedral. This is a DeVere publication, and lots of people really enjoy this one. I think there was a Contractors expansion that came out this last year, and I don't have it, haven't played it, but Red Cathedral came out originally in 2020. And I really enjoy the way the dice work in this one. You've got this kind of rondelle, and you're moving the dice around, but sometimes the color is more important than numbers. Sometimes the number is more important than the color. It depends on what kind of actions you want to take. And sometimes if you choose a certain color or number, then you're going to get a bonus action. And you're trying to build up this cathedral, but you're also trying to put decorations on it. And each sort of column on the cathedral, you're trying to get area control on to score points at the end. So there's, again, a lot of little things to be thinking about. Of how am I manipulating the dice, and do I have the resources to build the part of the cathedral I want to build, or to build the decoration that I want to build, and can I do that before the opponents can get that done? So lots of little interesting twists on dice use, and also the area control through that building. So Red Cathedral, a lot of fun. Glad we got that back to the table. I would be interested in trying the Contractors expansion, but just haven't had the opportunity yet. So another really good one back to the table, Red Cathedral. And next up, one that was a big favorite for a lot of people in 2020. And I got Lost Ruins of Arnak by Min and Elwyn, Czech Games Edition. Lost Ruins of Arnak has got some deck building. It's got this track that you're trying to move up. And you're moving up through the track in a variety of ways. You can move up using different methods. And so you're trying to think about which resources you have and striving to get up that track to get more bonuses. But you've also got these, they're not monsters, they're like creatures. I forget the exact name that the game uses, but they're out there. And so you might have to go battle those, and you have to choose different, okay, can I get there by truck, or do I need to fly there? And so just all these little decisions to make. When do you take the certain resources, and when do you go after those beasts, and when do you move up the track? And the timing of it all can be really important, because you might need to move up the track to get a bonus to then help you go attack that beast that's out there, and then get the bonus if you scare off the beast. I don't think you actually kill them. I think you're like, it's like a guardian of a temple, and you kind of scare it off, and then you get the rewards. But just so many really cool interwoven things. The deck building feels kind of like a minor part of it. It's important. You need to think about how you're adding different equipment and artifacts into your deck, but it feels less to me than the resource management. And although it is important, you can't not think about the deck building. But to me, a lot of people consider a deck builder as kind of their primary mechanism, and I think to me it always felt sort of secondary but important. Anyway, I like Lost Ruins of Arnak. There's been a bunch of games that have come out that are deck building plus, and that's kind of been the trend here these last couple of years. And it's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it a lot. And it was one of my top games that are back to the table in 2022 that I really enjoyed. So what is that? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. All right, now we're to our top 5. So the 5th one, back to the table, is Viticulture. And I was able to pick up the wine crate. So I've got all the different expansions built into this. And Viticulture, I really loved Viticulture World, which is the newest expansion that came out in 2022, the cooperative version of it. But I also enjoy the original. I like it solo. I like it competitive. I like the new cooperative world version. I like the worker placement and just how you have to think through when you use the workers in which spots, and you need to get the grapes and then harvest the grapes and then squeeze the grapes and then sell the wine. And you're just trying to sequentially do all these steps in Maximus, like an efficiency puzzle. And then there's card play that comes into it too, and you can only have so many cards, but you have to use a worker to get those cards a lot of times. And then you're also choosing, like, when do I go in turn order? Because if I go in turn order early, I might get exactly the reward I want or not the reward I want. So there's all these different decisions to be made. And Viticulture is one, I think it's my second favorite Stonemaier game. And just really enjoyed getting this back to the table, and especially adding in the Viticulture world expansion. So that was number 5, back to the table, with a little bit of new twist in there, throwing in the world expansion. Number 4, this game I played a lot towards the end of the year, and a lot of it on Happy Meeple, the website, but I love Cartographers. I love the Thunderworks Games world that they've made, this Nalos or Eulos world. All the characters. I love the kind of fantastical theme. We had such a blast with role player adventures, and just the connections to the storyline and the characters and the geography. The Cartographers is one of those flip and write games, and it's polyomino, and I enjoy flip and write, roll and write games, but I love polyomino games. And I also, when I first saw we were going to be coloring in, and I saw the directions on draw trees or draw the, the water waves, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I saw someone online say, just use colored pencils. And wow, that changed it for me. Using the colored pencils, blue for, water, and green for the grasslands or the farmlands, or yellow for farmlands and green for forests, and just building out the polyominoes, trying to get the shapes. And every time you play, you're going to score like what the scoring cards are for A and B, and then B and C, and then C and D, and then D and A. And so you know what's coming, and you're trying to get what you need to match up for A and B initially, but you're also thinking about what's coming in D. Because if you have an opportunity to start building up that early, you're going to score much more when you get to that C and D or D and A. And so between the polyominoes and the planning, just a big winner for me. I have, as you can see, the heroes box, and throwing those heroes in to help battle the monsters that come out. Really great. Loving Cartographers still. One of my most played games, period. And that was one of the best back to the table games for me in 2022. Next up is one that not a lot of people tend to talk about. It's Unforgiven. It's by Tom Butler and Green Feet Games, I think it is. Green Feet Games. And this is like, to me, a Seven Wonders duel killer. And that may be sacrilegious for a lot of people who love Seven Wonders Duel, but Seven Wonders Duel is great. I love it. But I feel like this one does a lot of the same things, but with a better thematic tie-in and a theme that I just enjoy more. The Seven Wonders Duel, I don't even think about the theme, but this one you're acting out the Lincoln assassination trial. And so you're trying to lay out a convincing argument, and there's a push and pull like there is in Seven Wonders. And there's so many different mechanisms that sort of mirror Seven Wonders, but the theme so much more ties in. And I love the way you have face up and face down cards, and kind of like Seven Wonders, but the shape of the pattern is different. And so you can see when some cards are coming, just like in Seven Wonders Duel. You're pushing and pulling on the justice wheel, but there's also multiple ways to win, like Seven Wonders Duel. So there's a lot that you can tell came from ideas from Seven Wonders Duel, with a few new wrinkles in, and like I said, a much, to me, better thematic integration. So I love Seven Wonders Duel, but this one, I would always choose this one over that, because it has a lot of those same mechanisms with a few different twists and a much better theme for me. So if you haven't tried it, you should give it a shot. Unforgiven. My third favorite game that I got back to the table in 2022. And then my second one, this has been one of my top games for a few years now, and this one's a Gray Fox game, and it is After the Empire. And After the Empire is a sort of castle defense, and there's really unique features. You got worker placement, you got tableau building, you've got these warriors that are coming to attack, and everyone around the table, they're coming, depending on which side of the table you're sitting on, they're coming in a different direction for you. And you know some direction that they're coming from initially, so you can kind of plan for it. And then in the end, a lot gets revealed that you didn't know, and so you have to hope that you planned well for it, or you have some abilities that allow you to overcome not planning well for it. So there's this partially known, partially unknown. There's this real nice push and pull, too, of on the track. If you really advance a lot, it's great. You got a lot of victory points, you get some advantages, but you also are a bigger target to be pillaged the next time in the next round. And so you're always trying to like get right to that edge where you're getting some good benefits, and sometimes you kind of want to be in first place, and other times you maybe want to hang back a little bit. Really interesting, and it's got some great components. You're actually literally building up this 3D castle with wooden walls and brick walls and wooden turrets and brick turrets. It's got all these little army characters that you're putting out on the walls to battle. Yeah, you got to feed your crew. You can hire mercenaries, just all kinds of things that I love about After the Empire. But it did, and it's been one of my top games for the last couple of years, but it did get supplanted. It's no longer, or it wasn't number 1 in 2022, it's number 2. So still a great game that I love and love playing, look forward to playing again. But a new game took over that number 1 spot for my favorite back to the table game. And that one is, see if I can get it out here without knocking things over, Dune Imperium. And I loved this one so much that I did end up investing in this deluxe box so that I have all the little miniatures instead of the cubes. And yeah, I love Dune Imperium. I love the race. I love trying to run up those faction tracks. I love the worker placement and the competition for that. I love the intrigue cards. I think the X expansion was incredible with the technology tiles. I just recently received the Immortality expansion. I was hoping to play that this last weekend at Conquest over in Ventura Gaming Day, but we couldn't get it to the table. But I just love Dune Imperium. I would play it all the time. With our gaming group, we are always playing new games. And my wife doesn't really care for Dune Imperium very much. She'll play it with me occasionally, but so I really wish I could get this from the table more, because every time I play it, I just fall more in love with it. So Dune Imperium was my favorite back to the table game in 2022 for me. What were some of your favorite games that were not new to you in 2022, but you got them back to the table and you were happy you did? I'd love to hear about that down in the comments. Or if there's something about these games that you do like or dislike, or questions you have about these games, leave me some comments about that as well. If you enjoyed this video and this top 10 list, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up, and it'd be great if you choose to subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy Indiana, signing off.
Huh.